Welcome, and thank you for joining us tonight for our Bountiful City Council meeting. It's Tuesday, May 23rd, and we will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance given by Mark Keyes.
Please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much, Mark. And now we will be pleased to have a prayer from Gary Roosh from the Bountiful Utah Stake. Thank you so much for that prayer. We will now move to the public comment period of our meeting, and we would invite anyone who would like to speak to come and offer your comments. You have 2 minutes. If you would state your name and your address, please.
That wasn't on the whole time. Thank you. Okay. Also, we wanted to just mention that, as you know, if you are not able to service this debt, this will call on sales tax. This has happened to other cities participating in the Utopia program in previous years. About 11 cities have to pony up about $15 million a year in sales tax revenue to Utopia. That does drain the coffers and puts pressure on tax revenues. We believe that could very well happen in Bountiful. The competitive landscape, as you know, is intense. There are private providers that would provide and could provide probably a similar speed at the same or lower price. Kaysville decided to go down a route without government support and now has scheduled to have 1 gig at $65 with a private provider. Farmington is doing the same. We would urge you to vote no on this proposal because by the time this comes to be a problem, we think it would be dealt with by a future city council. And we would urge you to keep them in mind and not shoulder them with this problem that we think will be coming. Thank you. Happy to answer any questions if the agenda provides now or later. Thank you.
Ron Mortensen, Bountiful. During the first week in May, we were informed that the power rates would be increased by 15%. Then a week later, we were told that a proposed additional $217,920 would be transferred from the power fund to the general fund this fiscal year, bringing the total transfer to $2.8 million. That notice also said that the city intends to increase the amount of the transfer to $3,050,000 next year. This is a total increase in the power fund transfer of $468,000 above the amount originally proposed for this current fiscal year. According to what I heard during the Power Commission meeting this morning, additional electric rate increases will almost certainly be required in the near future. In addition, power company reserves are being drawn down, as noted by Kate in her very excellent newsletter. So my questions are, why are you raising power rates and then transferring an additional $468,000 to the general fund when the power company badly needs revenues? Why does the city's general fund get 10% of metered sales rather than 10% of the profit? Why not use the $468,000 to limit power rate increases or to shore up reserves? And how many of you running for office this year will tell voters that Bountiful has the lowest property tax rate among the larger cities in Davis County, while at the same time raising power rates so you can increase the power fund transfers into the general fund? I would encourage you to rethink these proposed transfers before the June 13th public hearing. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to make a public comment?
Yes, J.R. Holt, 132 Sterling Drive, Bountiful. I disagree with the Taxpayer Association. This city has kicked the can down the road on the fiber network for years and years and years. What opportunities for sales tax revenue have we lost because we don't have a network? We have frustrated services in the city for internets and so forth. It's time to vote yes for that proposal and get the network installed.
Thank you.
You all know me, I've been emailing you back and forth. I want you to take me
Just
serious.
for the record, if you don't mind stating your name.
Scott Albertson, 1488 North, 350 West. I'd like to invite you all to my house Friday to walk the streets versus using Google. It doesn't tell the story. My mother-in-law fell again on Sunday to the, I don't know who the guy in streets department is. His phone conversation is inappropriate, telling me that my kids are fine without sidewalks. He grew up 50 years ago on a busy street. It's fine. The point is, the curb and gutters are destroyed in my neighborhood. My kids are getting eaten alive by mosquitoes. When we walk down the street to where there are sidewalks, they're all jacked up. I've sent pictures. Why are we using the funds for streets and parks to do some project at the Washington Elementary School as a legacy project for one of you people? I don't know whose it is. Why are we dumping millions of dollars to that when you can't fix my streets? Why you can't, my mother-in-law is gonna break something, and then what am I supposed to do? Do I bring it to you to pay her bills? Do I have to file a little suit once I get those bills? At what point is enough where you take me serious and look at my roads seriously? Lloyd, seriously. It's not I want a nice paved road. I don't care what the pavement looks like. I want my kids to be able to get down the road safely, not get hit by a car, and my mother-in-law to be able to walk them down the street and not trip on a messed up curb or gutter or sidewalk that they just fixed. They cut it down the middle, placed the new one. Here's this one. She rolled her ankle on that joint. At what point is enough? You know that my neighborhood is the armpit of Bountiful and nobody takes it seriously. You all are spending money on things that don't need to be spent on.
Thanks for your comment. Is there anyone else who wishes to make a comment tonight?
This is my first time here, so I hope you'll appreciate that at least. I've got a concern over the internet situation. When I first saw it proposed, I thought, well, yeah, that's a great idea. I don't think it's such a great idea anymore. I work from home. I'm a professional. I'm on conference calls every single day around the world. I work with Adobe. My internet provider that I use now, and I've gone through all of them, every one of them, and I've hated all of them. And I finally ended up, and this is not a commercial, but I finally ended up with T-Mobile. There's not a single line that comes into my house. Not one. I pay $50 a month and I get 300 megabits of service up and down. I've had it now for 2 years. I have never had a downtime. My concern with this proposal on the internet is that we'll have choices of who the provider is. I don't like any of the providers, and I'm sure T-Mobile won't be one of them because they're wireless. One thing that it states in here that was a concern to me, and I'm within about 2-3 years of retiring. I don't want any more taxes. It says in here, it is intended that the city sales and use tax revenue will be used to back the bonds in order to obtain the most favorable interest rate. So my taxes are being used to back this so that we can get a good interest rate. But if the take rate isn't what you expect, or we have problems, or we have problems with repair, who's going to repair it, then that's going to be laid on me when I'm quite happy with what I have today. And I can guarantee, unless you can prove me otherwise, that between the rate and the provider, it will be more than $50 a month for me. Thank you.
Sir, we didn't get your name, just for the record.
Sorry?
That's what, yeah, we just didn't
I
get
can
your
say
name.
I'm brand new. It's Russ Bean, Biehn.
Thank you.
Total respect for the committee. Just wanted to let you know.
Thank you. All right. We've got one last person.
Wouldn't want to waste this valuable time. My name's Jim Farr. I had a chance to send an email to the City Council and the Mayor. Appreciate the consideration on this important matter. I'm not going to reiterate some of the things I said in the email, but what I do know, and I had visibility to 16 states that I've been involved with, mainly with broadband grants, but also private and public partnerships, is that every study I've seen, feasibility study, has said it's feasible. Now, just because you pay a consultant, that's probably the answer you can get back. It's like a rubber band. It's going to be stretched really long. I think there's more than a significant risk that the feasibility study will not play out as planned. And it's a economic feasibility study, not an economic guarantee. So there is risk to the city, and you can, hopefully you've looked at some sensitivity analysis and tried to decide, okay, what if we only get a 20% take rate? How much is the city going to have to use of its sales tax revenue to do this? Private enterprise is going to build where it makes economic sense, but we're seeing a lot of changes. As the Taxpayer Association mentioned, talked about 2 cities in Davis County that found a private provider willing to build on their own. I know that I've also disclosed that I work for Lumen CenturyLink, and I'm getting close to retirement age. Of course, that's going to depend on what happens economically. There's a lot of challenges. As you know, you've got 2 rates that you're having to increase, and everybody's feeling the pressure of inflation, and who knows what this economy is going to do. There's a lot of money being thrown at broadband by the federal government, and so what that is doing is driving up the costs of fiber, materials, and labor. I appreciate the opportunity to give my comments. If you have any questions, please let me know. Thank you.
Thank you. We really do appreciate each comment. We will now consider approval of minutes of previous meetings held May 9th, 2023.
Mayor, I make a motion to approve the minutes of May 9th.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes. And now we will move to council reports. Councilman Higginson.
Maybe I will take just a minute, Mayor. Thank you. There was a question from Councilmember Price Hewish about power generation at our 2 hydro facilities and why we aren't necessarily getting more out of those facilities. The irony, I guess it would be, of having so much snow, like triple the snow water equivalent in the drainages that we generate power from this year. You'd think, well, if we have triple the water, we're going to get triple the power. But the managers of those streams have a difficult task in keeping the reservoirs at a level where they can accommodate a significant flow on warm days and still give us the ability to generate. So there's been quite a bit of time this spring where levels have been kept low enough that we haven't been able to generate. There have been times when water has overtopped spillways, which has filled the stream downstream from us, so we can't generate because then we would be dumping water into an already swollen stream. So we won't be getting 3 times the power that that I was hoping that we'd get from the snowpack this year. We are generating today in both of our facilities. Hopefully from here on out, as stream flows moderate, we'll be able to count on those resources a little bit better. But just a quick explanation from a non-technical perspective on why we're not necessarily seeing full reservoirs yet and power generated every day. Thank you.
Thanks for that explanation. That's really helpful. Councilwoman Segura Bar.
Nothing this evening. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilwoman Price Hewish.
Thank you, Mayor. A few things. One pertaining to the Planning Commission. There is going to be an open seat on the Planning Commission, and applications are being accepted now through the end of the month. Is that right? Through May 30th. So if you or anybody you know is interested in the Planning Commission, please help spread the word for that. There's a lot that happens in the Planning Commission, and it's a great place to serve. For the Bountiful Davis Art Center, this summer, there are a lot of kids camps, craft camps, and so I'd encourage people to look into that. The 48th Annual Statewide Art Competition is currently underway, and of particular note, a 30-plus year long tradition in Bountiful, or 36-year long tradition, free outdoor celebration of art and dance and culture will be taking place again this year at Summerfest. That will be on Monday nights, June 12th, 19th, and 26th from 5:30 to 8:30 p.m. They are really needing a lot of volunteers, so if you are looking for a place to volunteer and get involved, please do that. Another final thing, 2 more things. Sorry, Bountiful, the Chalk Art Festival is coming up. And that is just such a wonderful community event, and that will be held on Main Street, May 31st through June 3rd. And hopefully, it's always a really good predictor of rain for some reason. Poor Chalk Art Festival. But hopefully this year, no rain, and we'll have just a wonderful event. And put that on your calendars. Also, as was referenced in the work session earlier, the Bountiful General Plan is still underway, and we're actively seeking public input and comments still, and you can get on the bountifulgeneralplan.com website and navigate to the Be Heard section, and you can go to the interactive map and put in suggestions or ideas, and those will be considered in the final plan. So that's all, Mayor.
Thank you for those reports. I will just make a quick report. I serve on the board for the South Davis Fire District, and we're lucky to have our fire chief, Chief Stone, with us tonight. And just wanted to update from that board that the administrative board is recommending a 20% property tax increase, and we do also have a 5% increase member assessment proposed. So, I know that it's, right now we're feeling the pinch with a lot of different proposed tax increases, but as I've sat on that board, I really believe that this proposed tax increase is needful. And we are literally losing employees, firefighters, to other agencies because the salaries, were not able to stay in line with the salaries. And so that is one of the foundations of our society, that we want to be able to have people that are responding when we have emergencies and people that are qualified and trained and have the equipment and the support they need to do their jobs. And so that is being proposed, that increased the fire district, just as an update there. Councilman Bell.
Thank you. Just quickly, we, each summer, Bountiful has the summer concert series, and that's coming up. It'll begin 1 month from tonight on June 23rd. And the first concert will be kicked off with Bountiful's Got Talent. Those auditions are actively going on now, and they're in the final selection process of choosing those that'll perform for us. We'll have 7 concerts. Want to also recognize that Toast did the band Toast did a concert, benefit concert for, in part, to help support this cause, and they contributed almost $7,000 to the summer concert series for that effort. And so I want to appreciate them, and also Richard Watson for his work that he put in to make that happen for us. So that's all I have tonight.
Thank you. Councilwoman Bradshaw.
Thank you, Mayor. My council report is that the Bountiful Trails Advisory Committee is planning a project on June 3rd in conjunction with National Trails Day. We will have 3 different volunteer projects that residents can participate in. One in the morning, one kind of early afternoon, and one later afternoon, as well as a bike safety workshop at the library. All of these will also give residents a chance to take a look at and understand the trails projects that are going on as part of the Parks and Trails Bond from 2020. So if you're available, save space on your calendar for June 3rd.
Thank you so much. Great updates. We will now consider approval of expenditures greater than $1,000 paid May 1st and 8th.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. And now we'll consider approval of ordinance 2023-02, which prohibits the discharge of fireworks east of 400 East and Orchard Drive. And so I'll turn the time over to our attorney, Mr. Drake, and also we do have Chief Stone that we'll ask to come forward.
Thank you, Mayor. Utah code requires municipalities, if they would like to put restrictions on fireworks, that they do it before June 1st of each year. This is nothing new. This is the same restrictions that were in place last year. This is based on the fire chief's recommendations and his assessment of the city and the risks of fireworks. For the public's benefit, that would be anything east of Orchard Drive, and then as Orchard Drive turns and becomes 400 East, then anything east of 400 East in Bountiful City.
Great. Do you have anything to add, Chief?
I don't, Mayor, and members of the council. I appreciate the opportunity to be here. I know that fireworks is always a hot topic, and we deal with it with the other cities that has an east bench as far as North Salt Lake and Centerville, and North Salt Lake has the Orchard Drive line, or line that they restricted, and then it goes into right there on Pages, and then goes up and then down through on the 4th back east on Centerville. So this year we've had a significant winter. We all know that, but the last few years we've had a drought, and we're going to see a lot of growth. I believe light flash fuels with growth this year, and some of those little fingers that come down into Orchard Drive or below Davis County is a concern for us. And then with all the dead thatch and everything else that we've had is a concern. So my recommendation is that we keep it at Orchard Drive as we did last year. And I've spoken with Chief Beeler about, obviously the police have to enforce that law. We do not enforce it. They're the ones who go out there and have to, if we have to, issue citations, which I know they don't do a lot of, but more of a notification. But he feels that that's also a line that they can enforce. So I'll give it back to him. We'll throw police under the bus. How about that? So.
What questions do you have, Council?
Mayor, I have a question for the chief. I know that we've tried, because our South Davis communities mix and mingle, and people are barbecuing at friends and neighbors' houses in other jurisdictions. Will our neighbors, North Salt Lake and Centerville, be keeping Orchard/400 East as the boundary all the way across? I know last year that Centerville's line zigged and zagged a bit, so I'm just curious if we're consistent.
Yeah, that's a great question. So Centerville stays pretty constant with theirs. We haven't moved theirs in the last, as long as I can remember. North Salt Lake has a hard line. We don't have to do theirs every year. They just have a hard line at Orchard Drive. So this year, Centerville did ask if I would recommend that they go down to 4th East, all the way across, then to Main Street to Farmington. But I don't, Centerville in the southern part of the city doesn't have any areas that I feel are a big threat that could go up as a chimney, so to speak, up into the area it is. So their line is going to remain the same, which is what we try to do anyway, is to try to stay something constant. You continually move it, Bountiful, Davis, Orchard, Bountiful, all those. I think it's confusing for the residents. So.
Thank you, and thanks for the additional information. I recognize that Centerville's line is not necessarily ours to set, but as someone who lives on the north end of the city, I always appreciate knowing where our neighbors are going to be doing fireworks and not doing fireworks. And to me, these feel like important, reasonable restrictions, given that we'll have a lot of extra growth this year from our blessings of plentiful snowpack.
Yeah.
Any other questions, council?
I propose that I make a motion that we adopt the ordinance number 2023-02.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. Thanks, Chief.
Thank you very much, appreciate it.
Okay, the next item is to consider approval of the purchase of 54 radios from Motorola. Chief Ed Beeler.
Thank you. I usually like to go after Chief Stone because I can dig him a little bit and get the last word, but I'll forego that tonight. This first proposal that I have for you today is for the purchase of some Motorola radios. You may or may not be aware with some of the background of Project 25 or P25, which are standards for interoperability for land mobile radios. Let's see. P25 standards interface between the various components of land mobile radio systems and emergency responders. The state of Utah has been making changes and upgrades to the statewide infrastructure and equipment for the P20 in order to be P25 compliant for several years now. This new infrastructure is scheduled to be activated beginning of January of 2024, which means all radios need to be P25 compliant by then. So the following is a request to approve the purchase of 50 APX 6000 Motorola portable radios and 4 APX 6500 mobile radios. So our current our current Motorola portable radios are not P25 compliant. Portable radios are what we wear on our belt, so the handheld radios. So once P25 becomes available, we would not be able to transmit or receive signals after that. The current mobile radios that are in our police vehicles right now were purchased just a few years ago, and they are P25 compliant as they are right now. The Utah Communication Authority has upgraded certain software capabilities and are offering certain services that will allow us to significantly reduce the number of radios needed in our dispatch center. If you've been in the dispatch center, we have a back room that has a big panel of maybe 20-ish radios in there. With the new software that UCA is allowing us to use, we can eliminate all those, and they're going to record radio traffic on site there, so we'll still have access to that, which is a big benefit to us, that we don't have to have that room for those reasons, and we don't have to buy that many radios anymore. We did not seek multiple bids for this purchase because our current mobile radios are P25 compliant and are all Motorola brand. In order to keep consistent and have similar radios with similar features, we felt going away from Motorola would not be beneficial. Staff, including myself, has been to various demos and meetings where pricing was discussed, and there is not a significant difference between the price of the different brands of radios. Sufficient funds have been allocated in the fiscal year 24 budget. We did receive a grant in order to fund part of the purchase in the amount of $114,873 to help cover the large portion of this cost, which means the net cost to the city would be $60,843. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any discussion?
Can I just say thank you for getting a grant for, I don't know, what, 70% of the cost? So that's remarkable and wonderful. And with that, I'll make a motion to make the approval for the purchase of 54 Motorola radios for $175,716.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Thank you. That's right. That's really fantastic that you could get that grant. Thank you. And we'll move to the next item for you as well, Chief Beeler.
Okay, so this next item, the Bountiful Police Department has been using body-worn and car cameras for many years. In fact, a few years after I started, our car cameras were run with a VHS tape in the back, so that's how long that we've been using them. The current system that we use is WatchGuard, which I think that I've talked about this before. Motorola seems to be buying everything these days, and Motorola has purchased WatchGuard. And they're going out of date. So every officer in our department currently is issued a camera except for administration, and every patrol officer is issued a car camera. Current video downloads are being stored in-house on a server here at City Hall. So the following request is to approve the purchase of 18 M500 and V300 bundled cameras, so that would be a car camera and a body camera to go along with it, and 16 V300 body cameras for those detectives and school officers and stuff who don't need one in their car, and the associated software subscription and associated equipment. So we're currently replacing anywhere between 5 and 10 body cameras through WatchGuard per year right now. It takes a long time for us to get those cameras because they don't have a large stock, and parts to replace or repair them are basically non-existent. So we researched various providers in search of a new product. All major camera providers at this point have gone to a subscription-based product, meaning you store all of your video on their servers in the cloud. So we would not be housing our video in-house any longer, and you cannot outright purchase the cameras. It's more subscription-based. We received bids from 3 different providers for body-worn and car cameras, from Motorola, Digital Alley, and Axon. Motorola came back with a quote of $284,756 paid over 5 years, which is roughly $62,000 a year. Digital Alley came back with a quote of $320,215 paid over 5 years. Axon returned a quote of $438 and change paid over the course of 5 years. Motorola's subscription plan also includes warranty on all of their equipment for the life of their cameras that we'll be using, and at various parts in those 5 years, they automatically just replace the body cameras. I think that it's after your second or your third year, and you get a brand new camera. They also provide the potential future integration with Motorola products that we're already purchasing, like our radios, and a couple weeks ago when we talked about the new reporting software that we use with Spillman, which is also purchased by Motorola. Sufficient funds have been allocated in the fiscal year 24 budget, so I respectfully request your approval to purchase 34 body-worn cameras and 18 vehicle cameras with the associated equipment and video management software through Motorola Solutions for $284,756, paid over 5 years.
If there are no questions, I'll entertain a motion.
I have a question, just quickly, Chief. With this move to this subscription-based product and storing the video on the cloud, does that relieve any kind of administrative burden on your department, or is it kind of a wash? What does that
Not
look
necessarily
like?
for our department, but it does for our IT department. So we've been budgeting for several years for additional storage space to be able to accommodate all the video that we're needing to store. So we're not going to have to purchase new server equipment in the future. We've talked with Alan when he was here, and of course Greg now. They're aware of that and understand that. They've worked in collaboration with us about what this looks like. Probably a little bit of their staff time as well when the server maintenance happens. Now all of our equipment goes down when it's hosted by Motorola. When they do their own server maintenance, it doesn't affect us at all.
Thank you.
Good question. Any others?
Well, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the purchase of the body and car cameras from Motorola.
I'll second, Mayor.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Excellent. Thank you, Chief.
Thanks, Chief.
Okay, we will now consider approval of a fiber network construction and management agreement with Utopia Fiber. We'll turn the time over to Mr. Gary Hill.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I feel a little bit like Inigo Montoya in The Princess Bride, that after 3 years, there is much to explain, too much, in fact, so let me sum up. We started this process really in spring 2020 at the request of residents who brought their concerns about the availability of broadband and reliable connections and speeds in Bountiful to the council. And I think it was received by the city maybe very, very cautiously and even a little bit dubiously. It's historically been the city's position that these things will take care of themselves. But it started a study process of the city directed by the city council. It was that spring that we began to reach out as staff and council members to some of the incumbent providers to try and understand what their speeds were, where they provided service in town, what their expansion plans were. That continued at least through the fall. And we had very, very little success in having them either share what they were doing or get any traction on having them expand services further. In April 2021, we issued a request for information to provincial partners. And we're looking at that point for all options essentially on the table: city-owned, not city-owned, operated by the city, not operated by the city. We had a few providers give us some ideas. That was studied for well over a year. And then on June 22nd, after much study, the council tasked staff with issuing a request for proposals for a fiber provider to build and operate a city-owned fiber network. That RFP was released on November 1st, 2022. On January 10th, after evaluating the RFPs, city staff and the fiber team made a recommendation to city council to begin contract negotiations with Utopia Fiber for the program. Since that time, we've had many, many meetings, many discussions, both with the council, in the public, with Utopia, with other interested parties, and we're here sort of at it feels like the culmination, but it's only the culmination of the first part of this process. Because if the council approves this operational agreement and construction agreement tonight, it will begin a 2 to 3 year process of construction of a city-owned network operated by Utopia. And the next 2 to 3 years will be very intense as we roll the system out. I wanted to highlight just a couple of things in the staff report. Again, I'm really summing up. There's so much information, and it's amazing, I think, as we look back, how much we've all learned about fiber and the fiber industry and owning a fiber network and the benefits and needs and possibilities it can present to our community. And I'm Bountiful doesn't do anything rashly, has been my experience, and this is, I think, another example of we definitely took time. Whatever the decision is, nobody will accuse Bountiful of acting too quickly on this decision. But some of the things that are worth pointing out is that the city, provided this agreement is approved, we will issue bonds to generate, the staff report says 48, we've now determined $47 million in bonds. We'll actually issue less than that. We'll issue just under $43 million in bonds. The bond purchasers are willing to pay a premium on those for the guaranteed return on investment. So you issue fewer bonds than you actually receive revenue for. We believe that the estimates on take rates are actually conservative and very reasonable, especially when compared with like communities. I guess the closest physically and perhaps demographically is Centerville, which as of April 23 has a 49% take rate. Layton has a 41% take rate there in Davis County. We have a number of other communities that we could point to as well that we feel that very optimistically that a 35% take rate, which would be our break even, is achievable. It's our anticipation that within 4 or 5 years of operation that we'll be generating a profit. And I want to reiterate what has been stated before, which is it's the intent of the city that profits go into repaying the debt and to making the system more affordable. They're not to be used. It's not the intention of the city to use those to build any sort of other improvements. It's to basically make the fiber more and more affordable for our residents as time goes on. The contract terms with Utopia is Utopia will be the general contractor essentially to us. They are hiring B. Jackson, who puts in the vast majority of fiber in the state, to construct the system. Our term with Utopia for operations will be for 10 years. As I mentioned, we anticipate that it will take 2 to 3 years to build out. We are very motivated to go quickly. The time is right with Utopia as well. They have the materials. We are between projects for Utopia and the communities that they're working with, so we anticipate starting very, very quickly. We are looking at an estimate of fees of 250 megs would be $70 to $78 for a resident at this point. 1 gig would be $80 to $90. That will become clear as we issue debt and we know what the debt service will be, but that's a range that we're looking at. That is the total cost that residents would pay. There's additional information in the staff report about how that is broken up, such as a refresh rate, but that would be the total cost that a customer would pay. Part of this agreement is unique as well. Utopia already provides commercial service to a certain number of non-residential customers in town. We will be buying that infrastructure from them, and from day one, essentially the execution of the agreement, we'll be collecting the revenues from those commercial customers ourselves. I know you're very familiar with what's in the contract. We have been looking at drafts and sharing drafts and summaries for a number of weeks now. I'm very happy to answer any questions. Galen or Tyson can answer questions about the financing and the next steps. If the agreement is approved tonight, we would anticipate coming back with a super parameters resolution for the bond at the next meeting. We have Roger Timmerman, the executive director of Utopia, and some of his staff who can also answer questions for us tonight. And I know there are a number of people that are in the community, despite the fact that we've been discussing it for 3 years, that are starting to hear about this, and questions may have been raised. We'll begin putting our FAQs on the webpage tomorrow. We'll continue to build that as we get more and more questions. But if there are any questions council has tonight, any of us are happy to answer those. Otherwise, we recommend that the city council approve a construction and management agreement with Utopia Fiber.
Mayor, just a quick question. This is mostly, I think, for individuals who have not been following it as closely for the last 3 years. You referenced, well, in the contract, it references the number of users to reach the take rates that we're hoping for. And I'm hoping you can just address how, and then you referenced the monthly fee that end users will be paying. Could you just address hookup fees and after pre-40% and after 40%? Because I think some people are concerned that if they are coming in after that time, they may be hit with a hefty hookup fee.
I'm glad you asked that question. We've seen that on social media too.
Right.
Every customer will pay the same amount. The contract amount includes connections up to 40% of the potential connections in the city. So the number is 7,497 connections. And there could be the option that we would, the city could charge people that hookup fee beyond that. But we have planned and put together this this contract such that no matter when you sign up, everybody will pay the same. So there will not be an early hookup discount. There will not be a late hookup penalty. All customers will essentially pay the same amount to the city for the debt service portion, regardless of when they sign up. The only change to that might be if we are able, hopefully, to refinance that quicker, and then, then we would see that amount go down. But there will be no hookup fee for anybody.
And a clarifying question, or a clarifying statement maybe for people who are listening at home. When we're referencing take rates and the percentage, it's the percentage of households in Bountiful. I think there was some misconception on what that exactly meant. And I think some people thought it was 34% of this 74,000 or 7,400 number has been floating around, which is approximately 35% of our available households. So I just wanted to clarify that for those listening to the discussion. When we're talking about take rates, we're talking about households and
households or connections, because
or connections.
Right, some are schools or businesses. Yes, that's correct.
Just so people can put things into context.
Can you also touch on the contract or time commitment that a resident would be required to participate in this?
It's month to month, and so you could sign up 1 month and cancel the next month.
Gary, some of the,
Go ahead. You
no,
go.
you go ahead and finish your series, and then I'll.
No, another thing that you referenced, that I want to make sure that residents that we're clear with residents that as time goes on, and you had referenced it, that we intend as we pay down the debt and we achieve the break even and the profit-making take rates, that it is our intention as a city to reduce the amount that residents will be paying, or those customers will be paying. That's our intention. And that there is not an intention for fund transfers, as was referenced earlier by Mr. Mortensen, referencing our power fund transfer policy, which is an official city policy that we do that. Can you just address that?
Yeah, that's correct. It's been, I believe, very easily the intention of the council that our first priority is to pay off the debt as soon as possible on the bonds. And I think we go into this as a city eyes wide open, that we don't believe this is going to be a quote-unquote cash cow for the city. It's not going to be, we think it's financially feasible to do, but we also recognize that it has its limitations. And so all of the revenues, excess revenues that we may generate, will go into the affordability of the system.
Councilwoman Bradshaw.
I have, they're not necessarily some questions, just some thoughts I want to make sure that we have on the record about what's in the contract and the path we've been on. perhaps some of the residents, took a look at the contract and have followed along on this journey with us, but some likely haven't, and so some of what I think are the key components of what make this a plan I can support, I want to make sure we call out for the public record. Early on in the process, we had questions about, should we run this? Should someone else run this? Were there those private market solutions? And, as a municipal power city, we have some familiarity with running public utilities, and I think that gave us some comfort to explore this path. But there were definitely residents I heard from that said, okay, so you're used to running a power utility. What makes you think you can take on broadband and fiber? And as we looked at how to handle that, the idea of finding a partner who has expertise and specializes there, but would still give us an asset, became something that I thought was particularly important and something I'm glad to see as a component of this contract, and something that is different than the way other cities have moved forward. And it isn't to be critical of other cities. I think being a municipal power city does give us some comfort in operating utilities that are immediately neighboring cities that touch our boundaries may not have had, just because that's not a municipal service they provide. But I think that's a key factor. The other one is, the owning of the assets. And I think this is a credit to our staff and our fiber committee, but also Utopia as our contracting, RFP winning partner in this. This wasn't a model they initially pitched in the RFI either. This is a departure for them. I think they recognized that it was a sticking point for us, that if our credit were to be used, the collective credit of the residents of Bountiful, that we ought to have something to show for it at the end in having an asset. Just as when we bond for purchasing Washington Elementary, we have a park to show our residents at the end. And that is a critical component that if you just looked at the contract, you might not have understood that was, a hard-won point for us, and something that I was glad to see Utopia come to the table with and be willing to support. The refresh fee is something that I feel personally very strongly about. We will be holding that money so that at some future point, when it's time to upgrade technology components or the system, the revenue will be sitting in restricted accounts that we could draw on to do those important duties and services. I appreciate our friends at the Utah Taxpayers Association. I spend a lot of time with them in my day job, and I think they're an important entity to help us ask questions and poke holes. And I've had many conversations with Rusty over the years about the frustrations of when would the private market carriers decide to come and address the gaps in Bountiful? When would they upgrade old neighborhoods? When would they go to the neighborhoods that weren't profitable to them? And I had an underlying belief that the private market would solve the problems, and have been on a 3-year conversion process that on this one they're probably just not. And so fighting for control of that refresh fund probably wasn't directly what Rusty was hoping I would gain from this experience, but that became an important thing that I wanted to see us do, so that, again, all of the benefits possible that I can have return to the residents of Bountiful, but it's really we, a team, and we, the staff, that have done this, I think we have sought to protect. And I think those are critical components, and just reading the dry contract language, or, the thrilling legalese of the contract language might not reveal those key points and important negotiations that have taken place. So I wanted to make sure those were on the record.
Thank you. Good points for us to understand. What other discussion do you have, council?
Yes, I would really just like to reach out to the public and thank everybody for being involved in this process. This is weird. I feel very emotional about this. I'm sorry. You've cried before.
I have cried.
Because I feel like this is really one of the most important things that we will vote on because of the long-term implications. And I think, I'm just going to read a few things. Good policy is usually something that's intended to best serve the constituency of people by providing a solution to a problem. And many of us here today, we, City Council, staff, mayor, believe that deploying a citywide fiber network is simply good policy for Bountiful residents. And as elected officials, we're tasked to prioritize and enact policy in a variety of different ways. And in 2023, we look at commerce, education, entertainment, so much of it, business occurs online, and ensuring that all residents, all neighborhoods, all parts of Bountiful have this reliable, equitable broadband service or fiber at competitive prices is important. And as has been mentioned, many different models have been deployed in many cities throughout the state. I've been a very slow burn on this as a member of council. I, like my colleague, Council Member Bradshaw, am a believer in the free market system, and that will continue to exist here. All providers who want to continue to operate, who are currently here, can continue to operate. We will be a provider, and we're going to have to provide good service and a good product and earn all of those customers. So I can say that we're going to be hustling for that business and earning it and deserving that. There are many ways to skin a cat, and we've looked at every way. I believe we've looked at every way to skin this cat. And they've been considered and discussed and vetted and debated. And however, the decision that we are going to make tonight for this Bountiful-owned fiber network, as well as many decisions that have led up to it, have been made with the utmost concern. And I can say this with surety for every person sitting here, staff, council, the mayor. I hope I'm not speaking out of turn, but for the long-term interest of Bountiful residents in allowing for consumer choice, preserving options, minimizing the financial burden on taxpayers by relying on this being a fee-based service by utilizers who choose to opt in, and ensuring that we are offering a great product, great customer service at competitive prices. Ultimately, as decision makers and people who are tasked with policy, we rely on data and pro formas and experts and city staff and testimony and reports and documentation and presentations and the expert opinion of a fiber committee that was full of passionate, concerned residents and staff and other individuals, and more reports to make informed decision that we hope will lead to the best outcomes. There are different perceptions and opinions about the best way to move forward with this policy of deploying a citywide network. And as a city-owned network, indeed, and the impacts that that decision could have long-term. But I can tell you, once we make this decision, we are all in, and we are going to make sure that we have the best product, that we bring the best of Bountiful to Bountiful Fiber. And we have done the due diligence that we were elected to do. And for that reason, I'm comfortable moving forward with what I consider to be an extremely important decision for the future of Bountiful.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Well said. Any other questions, discussions, thoughts?
I have a question, if I may, Mayor,
Please.
and you're not alone. I cry too sometimes, so it's.
Over fiber?
No, it was over taxes, but, fibers, I agree. It's a very important decision. It's a weighty decision. And none of us are taking this lightly, and we fully understand, or hopefully, speaking for myself, but I think I can speak for my colleagues, we understand the weight of this decision, truly, and it has been on our minds quite a bit, because we understand what this is. I do have a question, and I'm grateful, as my colleague said, I'm grateful that Rusty is here from the Utah Taxpayers Association, and that you have taken the time to email us and to point out some of your concerns, which at the beginning of this process have been my concerns as well, quite frankly. But to that end, I'm wondering if I could just, you brought up a big statement in saying that cities who have defaulted on those bonds or loans are now paying $15 million a year with their tax revenue. So I would just like to ask Mr. Roger, since you are here from Utopia, if you could maybe help us understand of any Utopia cities who have reached full build-out, how many of those have not reached those anticipated take rates?
So
Is that question making
there's a
sense?
historical context for all of various projects we've done, right? We will go do 30 million and then 30 million and 40 and what, so we have timing in various projects in various cities. When the criticism about cities are paying $15 million a year, it's closer to 16 now, that is based on the projects from 2004 to 2009. Those projects had all sorts of struggles. We had lawsuits, we had cost overruns, we had bad contractors, every mistake was made. There was no Netflix, there was no telemedicine, there was no Zoom. Things were very different in that time. And so the city's finance projects didn't get the revenues that they needed. We talk about take rate, but truly it's just revenues. We need revenue to pay debt service. And those cities are on the hook for those projects. Since that time, we've done over $400 million of projects, much more than all of that time of what would be considered failed project, or at least, I would say they're not failed. They provided a critical benefit. Residents still benefited from all of that. But financially, they didn't hit their targets. Since 2009, every single project we've done in completing the original cities and in new city partnerships are all achieving the revenues and then some needed to make all of the debt payments and all of the operating expenses for everything since then. So we have a really good track record since 2009. In addition to that, that $16 million payment that the cities have to make on those old bonds, we're paying more and more of that every year. So we actually budgeted this year, this fiscal year that's ending right now, we're paying $4 million of that. And each year we're hoping to improve that and do better and better. But that's, again, the money's not being spent. That money was spent a long time ago, and the cities are making payments against that. So that context is, well, that's unfortunate. The world was very different in broadband back in 2004. But since 2009, 100% track record of success, and several times more size of project. All that 2004 to 2009 was about $185 million a project. Since then, it's over $400 million in UIA-owned project, plus we have partnerships where cities finance their own, like Idaho Falls and Bozeman, and that's between those two, that's probably another $100 million of project. But UIA has financed over $400 million of those. Does that help? So
Thank you.
we wish they weren't paying anything, and the take rates and revenues have all trended very, very strongly and put us in a better position to make more of that payment. But fortunately, you don't have to do this in 2004. You get to do it in 2023 when the demand and the take rates we needed we're very confident in the rates, and really it'll be a situation of, we plan for 35 to 40% take rate, and we've got 50+% take rate. It's a great situation to be in, and that's where we'll be in a few years.
Thank you.
Thanks.
While you're still there, may I ask another question?
Sure.
It's been referenced that the federal government's has budgeted to invest billions of dollars into fiber. Do you anticipate any of that demand impacting our costs and our materials, our ability to acquire the materials as planned?
We hedged our bets a little bit with this partnership, not knowing that this was going to be bountiful. We have a lot of cities in discussions with Utopia, and we knew there was demand. So we've actually, it was probably over a year ago, we basically said, let's go ahead and acquire the materials for what we consider about 10 footprints worth of build, at least the materials that were potentially going to be scarce. In this situation, we've allocated those resources to this, hoping that we would come to an agreement. And if not, then those would move to the next city partnership. But we have most of the materials in hand needed for this project at not today's price, but previous year pricing, which is better than what it would be to go buy it now. So really, this is, it was a good decision to do that. We didn't know that it was going to continue to get bad, and it has. It's gotten more and more expensive, but we've already got all the fiber, almost all of the fiber. We might have to do some custom orders here and there for certain lengths and things, but for the most part, the materials are in hand and ready to be deployed in the city. So the whole issue of supply chain shortages and increasing costs for materials really aren't applicable if we move on this today. So there are labor increases, but you have a committed price from Utopia. So
I'm grateful for that
we
too.
will.
Thank you. And you've held to that price through the duration of all of our negotiations and discussions, and thank you.
Any other questions for Roger? Thank you. Any other discussion?
I have some thoughts, if nobody wants to go. Just because it is such a large commitment, both in funds and time. I've been emotional. I've almost cried. This has weighed heavy on my mind, and as some of you may recall, when we've talked about this in the past, I've had lots of questions and didn't know if it made sense. In the months and years that this has been discussed, it's become easier for me to be excited for this day that we get to provide what might not be a true utility when it comes to power and water and sewer that the city typically is responsible for. Fiber has become pretty close to that. It's a way of life. It's a way of business, and we rely on it. There is a private sector that does provide some of that. I think it's the biggest complaint that I hear commonly is, the providers of internet have a lot of shortcomings, and that is their way of doing business, and that's okay. But moving forward, as has been said, the federal government's investing billions of dollars into fiber. It's because it's important. It's important for our commerce to grow, that we have consistent, reliable, cost-effective communication. I don't see that changing in Bountiful without our efforts on this, in this front. While we are committing to Utopia, we're still allowing, and because of the Utopia model, competition. The internet service providers are many, and they are competing for our business as well, and I appreciate that. If one is not providing the level of service that we want or the cost that we want, we can switch to another one quite easily. I love that this is a locally provided resource. The funds aren't necessarily going to out of state or out of our community. They're staying here, and I think there's great value in that. The accountability is here. I recognize that there is some risk. It is a calculated risk, and I've quizzed and questioned whether our take rates and our funding make sense, and with time I've come to believe that we will not be falling back on taxpayer funds, that this will be paid by our residents through their subscribing willingly to use this service. It's not forced upon any resident or business to participate, but I believe that we will have the take rates necessary to pay our obligations, and that those that participate will appreciate the service and have what they need for communication. I think that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Go ahead.
I'll go. I would just like, thank you, Councilmember Bell. Just a few things, a few questions that I've received in the last few days, and like my colleague, Councilmember Bradshaw, I just kind of want to get it on the record for anyone who may be listening at home or who may come back and listen to this meeting and wonder why decisions were made, and kind of how we are approaching, or how I am approaching this decision. There's been and I shared this early in our work session, but I feel it merits repeating. There's been a statement going around residents saying, well, other cities have done this with no cost to their residents. There's been no cost to those residents, and they've been able to install this. When in fact that's not true. Those neighboring cities who have chosen to go with a company such as Google Fiber, which is very good in its own right, and for various reasons we decided not to go in that direction. But those residents who subscribe to Google Fiber or whatever fiber is available in their city, Google Fiber is, that city is a customer of Google Fiber, and those residents who choose to hook up to that fiber network still have to pay a fee, and those eventual revenues will go to Google Fiber. And in thinking of what will be most beneficial to our residents long-term, and with Utopia being open to this owner-operated network, our residents will be paying, only those residents who wish to subscribe, not all residents in Bountiful, it's just, again, only those who wish to subscribe, will be paying those fees, those hookup fees to Bountiful Fiber, with Bountiful and our city and having those eventual revenues and hopefully providing a cheaper service down the road. And so again, it's not, there's no such thing as no cost to residents. You're either going to pay it to Google Fiber or you're going to pay it to Bountiful Fiber. And again, I'm just using Google Fiber as a blanket example, so apologies. But so I think for us to have our own asset and to have something to show for it long-term is just incredibly beneficial to our residents long-term. Another thing that a few residents have asked me, they said, well, how do I opt out? How do I opt out of Bountiful Fiber? I'm perfectly happy with my network, and I think it's important for people to understand you don't have to opt out. This isn't forced on anyone. If it's something that you want, you then sign up. And so if you're perfectly happy with your provider, I'm very happy for you. It's only for people who want to do it, and it's not going to be forced on anybody. Another thing, Utopia, you were very candid, Roger, which I appreciate. I think it's been, Utopia maybe necessarily didn't have the best reputation for a little while, but I think it speaks volumes that within the last 10 years, there have been essentially no defaults, and all take rates have been met or exceeded by cities who have chosen to partner with Utopia. And because of that, I have confidence that I think this will be a very good investment for our residents now and in the future. Again, this is not made lightly. I understand the risk, but as I think Councilmember Bell said it well, it is a calculated risk. It's taken us 3 years to make this decision. So many meetings, so many conversations, so many phone calls, and it hasn't been done lightly. And if I were coming into the conversation 2 days ago or 3 weeks ago, I'd probably be pretty fired up about it. I'm not gonna lie. But as elected officials and understanding this responsibility that has been placed on us, please know that for myself personally, I've been very diligent, and I have learned a lot, and I had a lot of the same questions that a lot of people have been proposing to me, but I'm very confident that I feel like this will be a good investment now and in the future. So I have nothing else to add.
Thank you. Is there any more discussion?
None. Unless you want to hear from me.
Well, I actually would, because you served on the committee, and so I think it would be appropriate to just hear your thoughts.
Me being quiet is golden, Mayor. Okay, so at the start of this whole process, there was a group in Bountiful that organized called Bountiful for Fiber. And there was a charismatic man who contacted us, and even though the phone calls were sometimes too long, I happily donated money to buy signs that they could put around Bountiful, because all of us were experiencing new working from home restrictions on speeds and buffering and all sorts of annoyances. And as another gentleman said earlier in the previous meeting, I've had all the providers and I've hated all of them equally. And even though I have decent service right now, I was really excited to think that we could have fiber internet in Bountiful. So thus started the process, and I quickly parted ways with those folks because of the fact that they all were singing one song only, one note only, and that is Utopia, Utopia, Utopia. And it became really annoying, and I thought that if we were going to be able to make a decision as a city that was based on current information from various providers, probably we didn't want to just listen to that one song. And anyway, there were social media posts. Roger Timmerman irritated me when he posted on social media. Roger, where'd you go? Oh, there you are. Let's just say that I was irritated with how some of the early discussions went. But I still wanted fiber, for sure. Then I was asked to sit on the committee that studied all of the information and the proposals that were brought to the city. And against my irritation, it became clear through that process, even though of the two finalists, both were fantastic companies, it became clear that Utopia was the right fit for us. And I commend them for the presentations, for the information they've provided, for the track record they have over the last 13 years, however long it's been, literally for the openness with their information and desire to work with us, despite the fact that we wanted to own the network. The process has been awesome. It really has been. And literally, it's been hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pages of reading informations and proposals. And it was all worth it, because I think we've gotten to the right spot. I said earlier that someone is going to build a citywide fiber network in Bountiful, and that network is going to be paid for by user fees only. And I'm happy to think that Bountiful is going to have an asset for its residents at the end of that process that will benefit all of them going forward, as we will own the network and they will share in the use of it. So I'm just excited to be here. There have been serious questions. Sometimes council members have brought questions again and again, and I've thought, wait a second, that's so obvious. But I got to sit in those meetings as a member of the committee where those things were brought forth clearer than maybe I was presenting them or others were presenting them. So thanks for letting me represent the council on that committee. It was a good process, and I love that we're here. And I'll stop. Thanks.
If there's no further discussion, I'll entertain a motion.
Mayor, I'm happy to make a motion that we approve a contract and management, a construction and management contract with Utopia, as has been outlined by Mr. Hill tonight.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. Thank you so much. And our next item is to adjourn. Is there a motion?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned.